Hello and welcome to another episode of Gallery Watch. My name is Lisa Anser and I report to you from the Baratti Fine Arts Gallery here in Fremantle. Tonight, the pieces behind me are all based around what some would call the tragedy of the 20th century, the lost little Greek city, Samarina. So this is what we call the quince.
Well, it's Odeon Drift Study for a Fallen Eden is the full name of the piece. Odeon is the record label that's referenced on the two boxes that we have here. So that was a major label that produced the Rebettica music back in the day. So the tower itself is actually generated from the record label. So it's kind of interpreted. Obviously the music form is dead essentially. So the tower is referencing decay. It's obviously similar to the tower, but it has a sort of bone-like feel to it. So there's a nice sort of the bones and the little bits there, and almost a skull sort of feel to it. Now, the reference to the quince, as I discovered, it's actually when we came back from Greece, there's a cultivar of quince called a Smyrna, which is the town that we stayed in. And the quince actually predates the cultivation of apples. It is actually the basis of the Garden of Eden mythology. So it is actually quite likely, in terms of where the truth lies in any of all of this, that the actual golden apple is actually a quince. So obviously it's not quite a 100-headed dragon, it's a splendid 6-headed dragon, but that's what it's referencing. And the floor in the middle, that's a Blu-ray, and that contains video material and a movie that we collected in Greece. So
It's creative in itself, really. It is a masterpiece. How long did it take to create something like this?
It's taken quite a while, several months, and it's been a major, collaborative work from the design stages to the artisans that we've worked with to realise it. It's taken a long time. It's obviously quite different in terms of how it all balances and sits together. And the cog too, one of the ideas too with this is in Smyrna, the church that got burnt down had a clock tower in front of it, which was the entrance to their church. So we thought it was fitting with this project to have a clock tower that is the entrance to this church, if you like.
I also like the cog wheel. It's almost an inspiration of the turning of time and yourself. Going back to Greece and bringing back what was once lost in history to something that is now created in art is really a creation in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, and the cog too. I sort of thought about the Clock of the Long Now project, which is an archiving project to archive ideas and art and science for 10,000 years plus, and the problems with that, and the problems of things being misinterpreted or things being, I guess, generally twisted with time. And that's what everything that happens. We look at this project or our thoughts about this project in an idealised way. It's very much homogenised, it's very much sealed away, and that's kind of another reference point too, is sealing that idea.
Obviously, all pieces are inspired by music. Is there a particular instrument in itself that is dear to your heart?
My main instrument is keyboards, piano keyboards. I do production work, so obviously mixing and electronic beat manipulation. A lot of my work too in here is photographic work, video work and that sort of thing. So it's all integrated.
for joining us tonight. Please tell me a little bit about where this all came from and what inspired you to do all this tonight.
Sure. I came across Rebetiko music in about 2004, and I'm Greek myself, and I heard this music and thought there's something soulful here and something deep, and the only thing I could equate that to was blues music, which is also from the heart. And when I sort of researched the music, so I didn't know what it was, so I listened to it and researched it and realised that it came from an event, which was a city in Turkey that was burnt, and 6 cultures or 7 cultures suffered: Greek, Turkish, Italian, French, and from that this music arose, and we thought, let's explore that.
Now, am I right in saying it was on this day in 1922 that this event happened?
That's right. So there were the fire went for 4 days. It was set on fire, the city, and it was on this day that the first fires were set. And 4 days later, it was pretty much the end of the city. Musical traditions that existed in that city, which were Turkish and Jewish and Greek, travelled with the refugees, and when they landed in Athens, they had that musical and religious, because Islam and Greek Orthodox also has a very strong musical tradition behind it. That came with them, and the Jewish as well, and so this Rebetiko music had what they called a Smyrna style. So it was, for people who knew, it had that Turkish Smyrna sound to it.
Beautiful. You mentioned earlier that this was something that inspired you on your travels, and on your travels you mentioned a town that was quite touching, and the town actually represents obviously the passing and those who became the refugees after the burning on this day, 1922. Tell me a bit about that.
So the Greeks had 1.5 million refugees turn up in 1922. What to do with them? They arrived in the port city of Piraeus, but that was no good, so they built a suburb called New Smyrna, or Nea Smyrni.
Now, one of my favourite pieces here tonight is actually that coffin. Now, a little birdie told me that was actually your piece, is that correct?
Well, for me, it's all of us. These pieces are Masonic. There's 5 of us, and in every piece we're in every one. But this one's quite special because in 1937, the Greek government outlawed this music. It was underworld. The themes that they sang about were considered forbidden, and so there was a dictatorship in that time, and they crushed it. And so what we have done is we have crushed 78 records to represent the music, and then we've created a lament using Rosa Eskenazi, who was one of the great voices of Rebetiko, and she's the vinyl that sits on top.
She was buried in a grave that was had no tombstone or anything that was significant.
That's
and
right.
I really do pay tribute to you, and congratulations tonight, because that is a beautiful piece that you have inspired by herself for that replica. Myself, I did look at this piece as looking at death as a celebration.
Yeah.
And is that something that was inspired from yourself, or where was the inspiration with this piece?
In the Orthodox tradition, the birth of a saint is the day they die. That's when that saint, that's when you celebrate that saint's day. And so for us, we thought we want these rebettic musicians to be sainted, to rise in a way, and so that sainthood happens. So in fact, her death is the birth of the tradition of the music, and for us a launching pad to start the project.
This piece to my right is one in particular that has caught my eye this evening. Tonight we shall find out a little bit more behind it, but for myself, I'm drawn to the fact that we have records. We have the coffin that obviously symbolises death, but also the roses and the rope. For me, I'm intrigued. For me, it's something that is quite touching to myself, as I love the way the artist has portrayed the death as almost like a life celebration. Music is very important, obviously, at a funeral, and those who have passed. This symbol of art, the creative side, is definitely one in a million. Don't go anywhere, Gallery Watch will be right back straight after the break.